So ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to be doing a unique video on Saturn return and what happens and what exactly is Saturn return and what are the things that you're supposed to learn from this, because this is very important, especially because of the fact I've been through my Saturn return. Okay. And as always, if you do not know where your Saturn is placed and if your Saturn return is happening in certain sign and house, for that, check out the links here and check out my full astrological report, including my books and new options on my website. And what happens is Saturn return is simply when Saturn goes over your birth Saturn during transit. Because remember, Saturn transits every 2.5 years from one sign, if it's not retrograding. Then it can even delay that even more, up to 3 years. But if you calculate 2.5, times 12, that comes out to between 28 and 30 years. So every 28 and 30 years, Saturn comes back to its own original place of sign where you were born on. Okay. And remember, transits have a very strong effect. Whether it's Jupiter going over Sun, Jupiter going over Venus, Jupiter going over Jupiter, Venus going over Mars, certain things happen. So when Saturn goes over itself, over your birth horoscope, Saturn, it brings a lot of new events in your life. This is one of the most important reasons why they say that you're not an adult at 16, 18, or 21, or even 25. You are an adult at 28, because of the fact at 28 is when this triggering point starts, where Saturn comes over your Saturn. Okay, so what is Saturn? First of all, Saturn is practicality, reality, hard work, discipline, organization, and most of all, maturity. What Saturn does when it comes over itself, it breaks your ego down. Especially with people who have their Saturn return happening in their ascendant or 7th house, Saturn breaks their ego down. Even all the other placements of Saturn does the same thing. What Saturn does, it kind of like shows you now that, oh, so you thought you could just live in under your mom's roof and your dad's roof and, just keep living over, from their expenses, and you think the world is easy. You think you can just go out there and, conquer the world and you are invincible. You will never die. What Saturn does is bring all these realities into place. Suddenly your body starts changing after 28 and 30. Suddenly your mind triggers itself where you start thinking about death. You start thinking about the end result of your life. And because of this end result of your life, what the main thing triggers within you is who you are. What are you here to do? It's not about midlife crisis. This is not midlife crisis. That's something you experience in 40, but this is mainly about what you have done so far was literally child's play. Now Saturn is wanting you to become mature. Realize that what you are here as a physical being, physical body, it's going to end at one point. It has an end date. The clock is ticking for all of us. One day this video is going to be a historic video. That, oh yeah, this guy did this video, now he's dead. So what Saturn does, it shows you that you better realize your life path before it's too late. You better realize what it takes to survive into the world before it's too late. This is why you will notice many people with this kind of a Saturn return suddenly changing jobs, changing careers, suddenly realizing that what the hell am I doing? I'm sitting here, processing loans for a mortgage company where I need to be out there and being in the medical world so I can heal people. Why this happened? Because this is a great experiment of a friend that I did. When I looked at my friend's chart about 6-7 years ago, I told him, dude, you should be this. You should be a medical professional. He never realized it. I took him to an astrologer that I used to take him to, and he said the similar thing at that time, and he didn't realize it. And then suddenly when 28 years came and his Saturn return came, he quit his job, went back to school, finished his bachelor's degree in science. He got a BS, Bachelor of Science. Now he's trying to pursue medical school. So what Saturn really does, it kind of shakes you to your core. You suddenly realize that, oh, okay, what I was just trying to follow, is not going to work out. Because remember, a lot of people pick majors in school. A lot of people follow a certain path because it just is whatever it is. They don't really care for it. They're like, just get a job. But when Saturn comes over its Saturn, especially when it's around 4 to 5 degrees going over its Saturn, what it does, it all the arrogance you had about being the best, never dying, being immortal, it breaks all those things down. It makes you feel humiliated. It probably makes you lose a job. It breaks a relationship or whatever that you thought was invincible. It makes you realize it's not invincible. It is going to end. So how are you going to deal with these things which are going to end? Then what happens is the brain thinks, okay, if something's going to end, whether it's a relationship or job or it's me physically, I better make the best of this opportunity and I better have a meaning to my life. This is why I've said this before too, that usually if it was my dream scenario, I like doing consultation of people who are over the age of 28. When I do anybody who is 18, 19, 21, 24, 23, 24, 25, and I see the fact that whatever they're about to do or doing, it's not going to be what it's going to be 7 years from now. It just, I feel like, they just don't want to listen. They think like, well, what is this guy talking about? He's just this and that. Where I myself experienced the same thing. I loved astrology throughout my life. Yet, till 28, I was following filmmaking and acting to the core. I mean, I was so into it, I raised money out of nowhere. Thin air, I raised money for movies. I used to even have a movie here on YouTube. I kind of took it off and I'll put it back again. It's called LA Hit. And I've made some Hindi movies. I've made like over 34 short movies, which are all in my mini DV tapes and all those things. But after 28, something triggered. I was not satisfied with what I was doing. Because probably of all the failures in there, I'm like, what is this? What am I? Suddenly I realized that it wasn't even the failures. It was like, what does a value an actor has in this life? What do they leave besides a movie that will be forgotten within 10 years, 15 years? Because not every actor is going to make Godfather or Citizen Kane. Not every actor is going to, make a Yash Chopra-like film or be part of that. And that's when I'm like, you know what? Before I die, I want to do something very valuable. I want to give something to the world because of the fact I was hearing it physically, enjoying life, experiencing life. So let me just leave it for the next series of people who will be following in the next 100, 200 years. That's when I decided, you know what? I am going to pursue astrology professionally. I'm going to pursue astrology the way I should pursue. And that's when my whole thing changed. And I have seen many people who change and many people who don't change, because it all depends upon how your personality is, how you were raised, because you have to look at the sun and moon. You look at the second house. If second house and sun and moon are damaged, they really do not value what things they have in this life, or they're confused about what they value. What Saturn does breaks it down, and Saturn coming over his Saturn shows the utmost reality. They're like, you better get yourself in gear. Otherwise, you're going to die, you're going to lose, and you're going to be finished, and there will be no meaning to your life. This is why at 28, when you feel, and if you seriously feel that, you know what, I don't belong in this field, I belong in this field. That's the field you should go into. That's the field you should go into. I don't care if you're making $1 million as a stockbroker at the age of 27. By 28, if you feel that you need to be in art and painting and drawing things for a living, I guarantee you, you will never be happy being a stockbroker, and you will eventually fall out by 36, 37. When it's going to be too late, perhaps, to follow what you wanted to follow at this age. Because 28 is a very prime age where you're switching from adolescence to adulthood. Now you're a man. Now you're a woman. Now you realize the reality. Remember the video that I made on Saturn just 3 weeks ago? I believe it was the reality of Saturn, or I forgot the title. But Saturn is here to tell you that if you do not follow your passion, if you do not follow a life that has meaning or that should have meaning, you will feel a waste. Now, if your moon especially is damaged, severely damaged, Saturn return will come and go. You will keep doing the same thing because you will simply not realize. Even if you realize, you will not have the capacity to follow what you do. Because a lot of people then procrastinate. With damaged Mercury and Moon, people will procrastinate. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Even I have done consultation of people whose Mercury and Moon were kind of damaged. And even when I said you should follow this, they kind of did get my point, but then didn't get my point. And I knew they have their karma to follow. And whatever I'm saying is not going to make sense. The only way it will make sense, even if your Moon is damaged and Mercury is damaged, is when you physically do it. Let's say if you were an information technologist, you were into IT, yet you were confused about if you should keep doing this thing or not. And you were 29, 30. And I tell you that you should be in a nonprofit organization working for social welfare and social reform, working with people who are sick, who are handicapped. You will never care for it until you physically go to an organization, spend 2, 3, 4 days a week doing what I'm telling you to do. You will not realize it. But once you do it physically, when you're physically, your mind, body, and soul are in that environment, suddenly something will trigger and you'll be like, whoa, why do I feel sudden satisfaction from helping a handicapped than me working in some software programming of an accounting firm, or me working on some sort of a map which somebody can do 10 times a better job than what I'm doing. So I am keeping someone else away from the spot that they should be fulfilling with me, and I should be in a spot that is empty for me. That's what Saturn return is. Now, there are people who keep following what they do. That's when your Sun and Moon are strong. Mercury knows what you do for a living, what you should do, what you need to do. And Saturn, when it comes over it, simply makes you more determined. At 28, you feel like, okay, I'm doing medical stuff for so many years. You know what? Let me open up my own practice. I want to spread my medical knowledge to everybody. So all these people like doctors who, LASIK doctors, who have changed their their clients' eyes through laser or through having LASIK eye surgery, is the same doctor who has his own practice, doesn't even need to do practice because he probably made $100 million from this technology that he did. You know why this doctor did that? Because he was frustrated that there wasn't a better thing to do. And at this age of his transition of Saturn return, he simply wanted to create something that would be much easier than to wear glasses or contacts. That's what Saturn return is. That's why you should take advantage of Saturn return. Okay? So guys, this was my analysis of Saturn return. If you're new to my channel, subscribe below. And again, if you want to know where your Saturn is placed and if your Saturn is coming through and which sign is coming through, what house is coming through, for that, check out the links here and check out my full astrological report, including my books and my new options. Otherwise, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.